بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين محمد رسول الله صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا كثيرا. فما بعد, my brothers and sisters, as I mentioned in my last khutbah, living in the revolution, there are three things that we must change in our approach to life to leverage the benefits of technology and counter its ill effects. Change the way we connect with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Change the way we teach and change the way we relate with one another. In the 15th century in medieval Europe, the conflict between the church and scientists came to a head. The Pope was Urban the Eighth, and the scientist was Galileo. Galileo's theory of Copernican heliocentrism, which is the Earth rotating daily on its own axis and revolving around the sun, was opposed by the Catholic Church. The matter was investigated by the Roman Inquisition in 1615, which concluded that heliocentrism was foolish and heretical since it contradicted Holy Scripture. Galileo later defended his views in his publication called Dialogue Concerning the Two Chief World Systems, and this was in 1632, which appeared to attack Pope Urban VIII. And thus, Galileo was tried by the Inquisition and not surprisingly found vehemently suspect of heresy and forced to recant. He spent the rest of his life under house arrest. The reason I'm mentioning this is because we Muslims inherited this conflict between the church, in our case our ulama, and scientists without any reason, because in fact there is no conflict in Islam between Islam and science. The purpose of science is to peel back the layers of the appearance of objects to reveal their underlying nature. The purpose of science is to peel back the layers of the appearance of objects to reveal their underlying nature. The purpose of Islam is to peel back the layers of the appearance of objects to reveal their underlying purpose. Nature versus purpose. Let's see what happens in practice. I call this the why versus how conundrum. When you ask why something happens, science tells you how it happens. For example, if you ask why do rogue waves happen in the oceans, you are told waves coming at different speeds from different directions suddenly meet and mingle into one big rogue wave. Solid waves, strong waves collide with fast-flowing ocean currents coming from the opposite direction, slowing down the waves so that they pile up and form rogue waves. Now the answer is perfectly correct, but not for the question that you asked. Is this the answer to the question why, or are they telling us how rogue waves are formed? Is it important to know how it happens? Of course it is. But does that answer your question about why it happens? How is the method or mechanics? Why is the cause or reason? Both are important, but not in the same way. Just as how is different from why, so are the answers to these two questions. Also, if you want to know how to change something, you must know why it happened. Just understanding the mechanics is not enough. You need to know the reason. The real answer to why can only be given by the one who made it happen. Let me give you an example. Simple example. If you invite me for dinner and make Hyderabadi biryani, nothing else is called biryani. Hyderabadi biryani, I will be totally delighted. Then imagine that overcome with happiness, I ask you, Ya Habibi, my dear brother, why did you do this? Now listen to my question. What am I asking? Why did you do this? And you answer, take a pot and wash it well, then take good quality, the best quality basmati rice and wash it well, then cut up the mutton because biryani with any other meat is bid'ah. Wash the mutton well in lime juice and then water. I say to you, hold on. Excuse me. I asked you why you took all the trouble to make this delicious biryani for me. You are telling me the recipe of biryani. That's good to know, but it doesn't answer my question. Why did you do it? And your response is, that's what I'm telling you, just listen. And this ridiculous conversation continues. Tell me, is my question, why did you make the biryani for me, answered if you tell me how to make biryani? The source of confusion is modern education that is taught without taking into consideration the nature of the Creator and His will. Since the Creator is not recognized, His will is not recognized. This leads to gaps in knowledge which are attempted to be closed by answering the question, why with how. Like the example I gave you about rogue waves. Another one, if you ask why earthquakes happen, they will tell you that they happen because of the movement of tectonic plates. But that is how they happen, not why they happen. The answer to why in any case is only one. Because of the order of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, what brings about these orders? We need to know this because only when we understand this and only when we accept this, that it happens because of the order of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then only then can we begin to ask the real questions. What brings about these orders of Allah? What can we do to ensure that the orders of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala are always those of reward and not of punishment? Again, I repeat, knowing how something happens is important. We are not denying that. We don't deny that. And that is the reason there is no conflict in Islam between science and theology. Knowing how, the mechanics, is important. But knowing why, the reason, is equally, if not more important. When we confuse the reason with the method, we lose the lesson in the experience. Experience is not what happens to you, but what you learn from what happens to you, what you do with what happens to you. But when you start by refusing to acknowledge the Creator, how can you answer the question, why does something happen? It is part of Iman bil Ghaib to recognize the connection between human actions and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's decisions. It is also essential to recognize this if we want those decisions to change. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us why things happen. He said in Surah Al-Rum, ظَهَرَ الْفَسَادُ فِي الْبَرِّ وَالْبَحْرِ بِمَا كَسَبَتْ أَيْدِي النَّاسِ لِيُذِيقَهُمْ بَعْدَ الَّذِي عَمِلُوا لَعَلَّهُمْ يَرْجِعُونَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, mischief and trials and tribulations and difficulties and calamities have appeared on land and sea because of the deeds that the hands of men have earned, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala may give them, so that Allah can give them a taste of some of their deeds in order that they may turn back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, turn back from evil. The mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is visible in everything that He does. Even His punishment is a sign of His mercy because it protects us from the real disaster. The integration of knowledge is what must be recreated. In the words of one of our greatest scholars of our land, Allama Sayyid Sulaiman Nadwi, rahmatullahi alayhi, who said, the greatest corruption was when we separated religious knowledge from scientific knowledge. This is what needs to be corrected, not Islamization of knowledge, since all knowledge is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in any case. But Islamization of our character, our ethics, our values and morals, so that the knowledge we acquire is used only to spread goodness all around us, to all creatures, human, animal and the environment. It is tarbiyah that we need. Tarbiyah focused on taqwa wal ihsan. No time to go into the details here. I'm just putting markers here for you to reflect on. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala taught us how to teach. What does the Quran tell us? It tells us to first recognize the Creator and then look for His signs in His creation. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم إن في خلق السماوات والأرض واختلاف الليل والنهار لآيات لأولي الألباب الذين يذكرون الله قياما وقعودا وعلى جنوبهم ويتفكرون في خلق السماوات والأرض ربنا ما خلقت هذا باطلا سبحانك فقنا عذاب النار. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, verily, in the creation of the heavens and the earth, and in the alternation of night and day, there are indeed signs for people of understanding, for people of intelligence. Those who remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala always standing, sitting and lying down on their sides, and, keyword, and, think deeply about the creation of the heavens and the earth, saying, our Rabb, you have not created all of this in vain, you have not created all of this for nothing, and without purpose. Glory to you, give us salvation from the fire. There are three critical elements in this ayah. First, after telling us that intelligent people can see, people of understanding can see His signs in His creation, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala described intelligent people, people of understanding. He said that they are first and foremost people who know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and remember Him in all aspects of their lives. For them, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is real. The meeting with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is real. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's pleasure is real. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is their first priority. For them, nothing is more important than pleasing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and everything else in their lives revolves around that. This means that these people are those who have taqwa and whose first and only concern is never to displease Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They love Allah, are connected to Him and remember Him constantly. Please remember that dhikr is not merely repeating the names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but to stop and ask ourselves before every action or speech. To stop and ask ourselves before every action or speech, does this please Allah? If it does, we do it. If it doesn't, we don't do it. And if there is a doubt, we clarify the doubt before doing anything. That is the meaning of dhikr. And that is the first attribute of intelligence and understanding according to the one who created the intelligence, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That we recognize and worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The second attribute is that they, such people, are concerned with the world. They are not people who have given up the world and live in a hole in the hill, in a cave like a monk. No, they are people who are in the world. They are people who research in creation. In the beautiful way of the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala used only one word, fikr, to encompass every form of research that we can ever do in His creation. Allah created this universe and He created the laws that govern it. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created the law of gravity. Newton described it. Thanks to this law, we are all sitting here in safety instead of flying off into deep space thanks to centrifugal force. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created the laws of thermodynamics, and Fowler and Guggenheim described and listed them in the 1930s. Too many things to thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for, thank Allah for in these laws, so I will leave you to read and reflect on them and to thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created the law of aerodynamics and lift. thanks to which an A320 Airbus 380 with a fully laden weight of 91,000 kilograms takes to the air. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created the law of displacement of fluids, and Archimedes described it. Thanks to that, a tanker or container ship with a dead weight of 200,000 tons of steel floats on water, on the sea. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created the Pacific with the Mariana Trench, which is 11 kilometers deep, where sunlight never ever reached, and where in total darkness the temperature is 4 degrees Celsius and water pressure is 1086 bars, that is 15,750 psi, enough to squash a nuclear submarine to pulp. Yet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created marine animals that live there in perfect safety, even though they are not made of titanium steel. Tell me, do you teach these things in your schools? Do you teach these things in your madrasas? How then do you claim to teach the Quran? The critical to the second attribute of the ayah is the word and. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not state that intelligent people are those who do this or that, one or the other of these things, dhikr of Allah or research in His creation. He said, Jalla Jalaluhu, that intelligent people are those who do both. He used the preposition and, not or. So to be considered intelligent, according to the standard of the Quran, we must do both, dhikr of Allah and research in His creation. The third attribute of this ayah is the sequence of teaching. That is, first introduce Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to the students and then let them research in His creation. If you do not follow the sequence, you either get ulama who know nothing about the material world and so cannot guide anyone in it, or you get atheists who deny the existence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and believe that everything is the result of an accident. They forget that accidents break things, not make things. The third and last part of the ayah tells us what happens when we educate, as the Quran taught us to educate. We create muttaqi scientists. We create scientists and technologists who see the signs of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and fulfill the purpose of the revelation of the Quran, which began with the command, Iqra, read. When people study in this way, in this sequence, they remember that one day they will meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and they yearn for that day when they will be with the one they love. It is my dream to see the day when a cardiac surgeon will hold a scalpel in his hand, a hand about which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in the Hadith Qudsi, my slave comes so close to me that I become the hand by which he holds. And this surgeon then makes dua to his Rabb for shifa, for his patient, because he knows that the cure is with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and not in his surgery. And then after the operation is over, this surgeon goes across to the masjid to deliver the khutbah for Juma. There is no conflict between science and religion in Islam. Conflict happens when we want to ignore the Creator and develop our knowledge free from the Creator. It is a basic principle in life that you cannot ignore the source of your own power. Since Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the source of all knowledge, it is oxymoronic to imagine that you can develop knowledge while ignoring the source of knowledge. That is why we have so much confusion and discord, because this thinking can only lead to misguidance. Our ulama are equally at fault for preaching hatred of science while running to scientists, also called doctors, when their qulub are in wajd. We must discard this hypocritical stand and start teaching the way Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala prescribed. Teach science from the lens of the revelation, the Quran, and to people who know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and are connected to Him, Jalla Jalaluhu. The result will be, inshallah, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala described. رَبَّنَا مَا خَلَقْتَ هَذَا بَاطِلًا سُبْحَانَكَ فَقِنَا عَذَابَ النَّارِ. Our Rabb, you have not created all of this without purpose. Glory to you, give us salvation from the fire. That is our challenge. The reward will be a glorious future contributing to the world and the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, inshallah. ربنا فاغفر لنا ذنوبنا وكفر عنا سيئاتنا وتوفنا مع الأبرار ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار آمين يا رب العالمين. جزاكم الله خير والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.